The first warning came on the day the humans landed. They stepped onto the new world with hope in their hearts, carrying tools, supplies, and dreams of building a future. The planet was green, alive, and full of promise. Great forests spread across the hills, rivers shone under twin suns, and strange birds with silver feathers filled the sky. To the humans, it looked like paradise. But to the aliens who lived there, it was not a paradise. It was a place of rules, traditions, and secrets. And the most important rule of all was spoken to the humans the very first night. The alien elders stood tall before the fire. Their faces were sharp and lined, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Around them, their warriors watched with spears of bone and shields of metal. The humans sat quietly, waiting, not knowing what to expect. One elder stepped forward. His voice was deep, slow, and filled with weight. You may settle here. You may build your homes, your farms, and your towns. But there is one law you must follow. One law above all others. Stay away from the cubs. The word spread like a chill wind through the human camp. Many frowned. Some whispered. But the elder raised a hand to silence them. Do not go near them. Do not touch them. Do not watch them. If the cubs come to you, you must turn away. If you hear their cries, you must not answer. This is our first and greatest warning to you. Obey it or pay the price. The humans exchanged uneasy glances. They had faced many dangers on other worlds. Storms, beasts, hunger, even war. But never had they been told such a strange rule. Why fear cubs? Weren't cubs only children? One human leader, a woman named Captain Lewis, stood up and asked, "Why? What danger is there in cubs? Are they poisonous? Do they carry disease?" The elder's eyes narrowed. His voice grew sharper. They are not poison. They are not sick. But they are sacred, and they are deadly. Their parents will destroy anyone who dares come near. Even their own kind have been killed for mistakes. Many cycles ago, a war started because one tribe touched cubs that were not theirs. We lost whole villages. Fire burned across the forests. Blood filled the rivers. The cubs are not for you. Do you understand? The humans nodded slowly, but unease remained. Another man whispered to his friend, "It makes no sense. Why such fear? Why such secrecy?" His friend shook his head, unsure. The elder continued, his voice dropping lower, like the growl of some hidden beast. "You may laugh at storms. You may fight beasts. You may resist hunger. But if you anger the cubs, no power in the stars will save you. Their parents will not stop. Their tribes will not forgive. Even the cubs themselves are not harmless. They carry strength inside them. They are born with it. And once it wakes, it cannot be controlled. Remember this. Stay away." The fire cracked. Shadows danced across the camp. For a long time, no one spoke. The humans felt the weight of the words pressing down on them. It was not just a warning. It was a threat wrapped in mystery. Later that night, when the elders were gone and only the humans remained, the camp buzzed with whispers. Maybe it's just fear. Maybe they want to keep us from something valuable. Or maybe it's true. Maybe their cubs are monsters. No, I don't believe it. Children are children. How dangerous can they be? Captain Lewis listened but said nothing. She looked toward the forest. Out there, beyond the trees, something was waiting. Something she could not see, but could almost feel. The days that followed were busy. The humans built shelters, dug wells, and planted crops. The aliens watched from a distance, offering no help but also no harm. All seemed calm, yet the warning of the cubs stayed in every human mind. Sometimes at night, strange sounds came from the forest. High-pitched cries, soft growls, something like laughter, but not quite human. The people would lie awake, listening, wondering if those were the cubs. Some said the voices were playful. Others swore they carried hunger, like the call of a predator. Children of the human settlers asked questions. Can we play with them? Are they like us? The parents shook their heads. No, stay away. That is a rule. But rules are hardest to follow when curiosity burns brighter than fear. And with every passing day, curiosity grew. Still, no one dared break the warning. Not yet. The forest waited. The cubs waited. And though the humans did not know it, the cubs had already heard of them. The story was not only about humans staying away from cubs. It was also about cubs who would not stay away from humans. And soon, the warning would be tested. The humans tried to follow the warning. They really did. For weeks after the first night, they avoided the deep forest. They worked on their homes, repaired their machines, and sent small groups to explore safe areas. Everyone remembered the words of the alien elder. Stay away from the cubs. But warnings do not always protect. Sometimes, they only make curiosity grow stronger. It was a clear morning when the first encounter happened. The twin suns rose over the valley, casting gold light through the trees. A team of human workers walked out to fix a broken water pump near the forest edge. The pump was heavy and old, and without it, the settlement would have no clean water. The team was small, 5 humans with tools on their backs. Among them was Thomas Hale, a quiet engineer with sharp eyes and steady hands. Beside him walked Mira, a young botanist who loved plants more than machines. The others were workers, strong, tired, and focused only on the job. They set the pump on the ground and began their work. The forest around them was silent, except for the hum of insects and the distant calls of silver-feathered birds. The air smelled of wet earth and strange flowers. Everything seemed calm, but then came a sound. It was soft at first, almost like a child's laugh carried on the wind. The humans froze. The sound came again, this time clearer, closer. Not quite laughter, not quite growling. Something between the two. Thomas looked at the others. Did you hear that? Mira nodded slowly. Her eyes were wide. Yes, it came from the trees. They turned toward the forest. The shadows shifted between the tall trunks, and something small moved in the undergrowth. Then, with a rustle of leaves, a shape appeared. It was not what they expected. Out from the forest stepped a creature no taller than a human child. Its body was covered in short, dark fur, with faint stripes that glowed softly in the light. Its eyes were large, too large, glimmering like molten gold. Small fangs peeked from its mouth, but the expression was not anger. It was curiosity. The cub tilted its head and stared at the humans. One worker cursed under his breath and stepped back. It's one of them, a cub. The others froze, unsure what to do. The warning thundered in their minds. Do not go near the cubs. But the cub was not going away. In fact, it moved closer. Thomas held his breath. He expected the creature to growl, to attack, to call for its parents. Instead, the cub walked straight up to him. It sniffed his boots, then looked up with those glowing eyes. Mira whispered, "It's not afraid of us." Before Thomas could answer, more rustling came from the trees. 2 more cubs stepped out, then another. Soon there were 5 of them, their striped fur shimmering in the sunlight. They bounded forward with playful growls, circling the humans. The workers panicked. One man lifted his tool, as if to swing it. We have to scare them off, if their parents find us here. Wait, Thomas said firmly, raising a hand. His voice was calm but urgent. Don't move. Don't hurt them. The cubs were not attacking. They were curious. One pawed at the water pump, another tugged at Myra's bag, and a third sat down beside Thomas, as if claiming him. Their eyes were sharp, but their movements were almost friendly. Mira knelt slowly, her fear giving way to wonder. "They're beautiful," she whispered. She reached out a trembling hand, but stopped before touching. She remembered the rule. Still, the cub leaned closer and brushed its nose against her fingers. The human stared in shock. The cub had chosen contact on its own. For several long minutes, no one spoke. The only sounds were the soft growls and playful cries of the cubs. It felt unreal, like a dream. Then the silence broke. A shout rang out from behind them. Alien voices. The humans turned to see a group of scouts running toward them. Their armor gleamed, their weapons raised. The leader's eyes widened in horror when he saw the cubs press close to humans. His voice was sharp, filled with anger and fear. "No, this cannot be. Get away from them." The cubs hissed at the scouts, their playful mood vanishing in an instant. They stood protectively around the humans, growling with tiny but fierce voices. Their glowing eyes narrowed, as if daring the aliens to come closer. Thomas felt his chest tighten. The warning had been true. If the cubs were protective now, what would happen when their parent arrived? The scout leader shouted again, his words shaking with rage. "They have chosen you. Do you understand what this means? Do you know the danger you bring?" The humans were confused. Chosen? What did that mean? Mira stood slowly, keeping her hands open. "We didn't go to them," she said. "They came to us. They won't leave us alone." The scout's face twisted in disbelief. "That is worse. If the cubs choose you, their kind will not forgive it. Their bond cannot be broken. It will bring war." The cubs growled louder, circling closer around the humans. The scouts hesitated, clearly afraid to attack while the cubs were watching. Even the armed aliens seemed powerless against the small, striped creatures. Thomas finally spoke. His voice was steady, but inside he felt the weight of something far greater than he could understand. "Then tell us what this means. Tell us why they are here." The scout's eyes burned with fear and anger. "It means your fate is no longer your own. The cubs have chosen you as their protectors. And when their parents learn of this, nothing in the stars will stop the storm that follows." The words fell heavy on the humans. They had been warned. They had tried to obey. But the cubs had not obeyed. The humans were no longer free to choose. The cubs had chosen for them. And in that choice, the real danger had begun. The camp did not sleep that night. After the encounter near the water pump, the humans returned under the watch of alien scouts. The cubs followed them all the way, padding to the grass, glowing eyes fixed on their new companions. No one dared to touch them. No one dared to push them away. Still, the cubs refused to leave. When the humans entered the settlement, every worker and family came out to see. Gasps filled the air. Mothers pulled their children close. Men reached for tools as weapons. But fear quickly turned into confusion, for the cubs were not attacking. They were calm, almost protective. One cub sat at Thomas Hale's feet, tail curled neatly around its striped body. Another leaned against Myra's side, purring softly, its glowing eyes half closed as if in comfort. The rest spread themselves in a loose circle around the humans, keeping watch. Captain Lewis stepped forward, her face pale but steady. "Why are they here?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You were warned. You were told to stay away." Thomas raised his hands helplessly. "We did. We didn't go to them. They came to us." Mira nodded quickly. "We tried not to touch them, but they wouldn't leave. They chose us." The alien scouts still lingered at the edge of the camp, their expressions dark and troubled. One of them, the leader from before, spat on the ground and spoke through clenched teeth. "This is a curse, a choice that should never have been made. The cubs have broken tradition, and now your people will pay." His words spread a cold wave through the camp. Fear whispered between the humans. Children clung to their parents, whispering, "Are they dangerous? Will they hurt us?" But the cubs made no move to harm anyone. They simply stayed close, their glowing eyes soft when they looked at the humans, sharp when they looked at the scouts. Captain Lewis turned on the alien leader. "Explain," she demanded. "What does this mean? Why are you so afraid?" The alien's voice grew tight, as if each word hurt to speak. "Cubs are sacred. They are the future of our tribes. They're watched, guarded, protected at all costs. Never in our history have they chosen outsiders. But now they have chosen you. This bond cannot be undone. Wherever you go, they will follow. Whoever threatens you, they will resist. Their parents will not accept this. They will see it as theft, as insult, as crime." Myra's face paled. "But we didn't steal them. They came on their own." The scout's eyes burned with anger. "That does not matter. To their kind, only one truth exists. Cubs belong with family. If family sees them here, bonded to you, war will come. Do you understand now?" Silence fell. The humans exchanged worried glances. Even Captain Lewis, strong and steady, looked unsettled. Finally, Thomas spoke, his voice quiet but clear. "We cannot send them away. We tried. They refused." As if to prove his words, the cub at his feet pressed closer, its glowing eyes blinking slowly in a gesture of trust. The alien leader snarled, "Then you are marked, and so is your settlement." With that, the scouts turned and left, their armor clattering softly as they vanished into the night. The humans were left alone with the cubs. The settlement became a cage of whispers. For days, the cubs followed the humans everywhere. They padded beside the farmers in the fields, sat with the engineers at their machines, and even curled up at night near the fires. They ate strange fruits and raw meat brought from the forest, but they never left the human side. At first, fear ruled the settlement. Families shut themselves inside their homes. Parents warned their children not to go near the cubs. But slowly, something began to change. The cubs did not attack. They did not harm. Instead, they protected. When a wild beast crept too close to the crops, one cub growled and chased it away. When machines sparked and caught fire, another cub dragged a fallen log aside, so humans could escape. Wherever the cubs went, they acted not like hunters, but like guardians. Still, unease never left. One night, as a firelight flickered across the camp, Mira sat with Thomas, staring at the cubs as they slept. Their fur glowed faintly, stripes pulsing with a strange light. "Why us?" Mira whispered. "Out of everyone, why choose us?" Thomas shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe they see something we don't. Maybe they feel something we can't." Mira hugged her knees. "The scouts said war will come. What if they're right? What if the parents come and—" Her words broke off. The thought was too heavy to finish. Thomas looked at the sleeping cubs. "If they chose us, then maybe it means we're supposed to protect them. Maybe that's what we're here for." Mira gave him a tired smile. "Or maybe we're just the unlucky ones." The next morning, Captain Lewis called a meeting. All the settlers gathered in the central square, with the cubs lounging lazily nearby. "We need answers," the captain said firmly. "These cubs will not leave us. That much is clear. But we cannot ignore the warning. If their parents come, we may all be in danger." Arguments erupted at once. "Send them back into the forest. They'll only follow us again. Build walls to keep them out. They'll tear them down. We should hand them over to the aliens before it's too late. No, they came to us. They trust us." The voices rose higher and higher until the cubs stirred. Their glowing eyes snapped open, and they growled softly. Instantly, the humans fell silent, fear returning in a heavy wave. The cubs padded forward, placing themselves between the humans and the arguing voices. One sat at Captain Lewis's side, brushing against her leg. Another curled near Mira. Another pressed close to Thomas. The meaning was clear. The cubs had chosen. The humans could argue, they could plan, they could fear, but the cubs had already made their decision. And that decision was final. That evening, Thomas walked alone by the edge of the camp. One cub followed him, padding silently across the grass. The night was quiet, the twin moons rising above the forest. Thomas stopped and looked down at the cub. "Do you know what you've done?" he asked softly. "Do you know what danger this brings?" The cub only tilted its head, then pressed its nose against his hand. Its glowing eyes blinked slowly, full of trust. Thomas sighed. "You've chosen us, and now we can't turn back." In the distance, a howl echoed through the forest, deep, powerful, and filled with rage. The cub's ears twitched, but it did not move from Thomas's side. He felt a chill crawl down his spine. The parents were out there. They would come. The cubs had chosen the humans. But would the parents accept that choice? Or would the whole planet burn because of it? The forest was restless. For days after the cubs made their choice, the humans felt the weight of unseen eyes watching them from the trees. Shadows shifted at night, and distant roars carried across the valley. The settlers went about their work, but unease grew with every sunrise. The cubs never left. Wherever the humans went, they followed, protective, curious, loyal. They slept beside the fires, padded to the fields, and even guarded the edges of the camp. To the settlers, it felt less like having pets and more like being watched by small, powerful guardians. But protection could not quiet fear. One morning, Captain Lewis called Thomas, Mira, and several others to the council hut. The cubs followed, slipping inside as if they belonged. The settlers whispered nervously, but no one dared chase them out. Inside, the captain's face was drawn and tired. "The aliens have returned," she said. "Not scouts this time. Elders." A hush fell. Everyone knew the weight of that word. Elders did not come for trade or talk. They came for judgment. Moments later, the doors opened, and 4 alien elders entered, cloaked in dark woven robes. Their eyes glowed faintly, their steps heavy with age and power. Warriors followed, spears and blades gleaming. The cubs rose to their feet instantly, growling low. Their stripes flared with soft light, warning the elders not to come too close. The warriors froze, uncertain. One elder raised a hand, and silence filled the room. His voice was deep, steady, and filled with ancient weight. "So it is true. The cubs have chosen the humans." The settlers shifted uncomfortably. Thomas felt his throat tighten. Mira clutched her hands together, heart racing. The elder stepped closer, ignoring the growls. His golden eyes swept across the humans like fire. "You do not understand what this means. To us, cubs are not only children. They are our future. They carry the spirit of our ancestors and the power of our blood. When they choose, it is forever." Captain Lewis spoke firmly. "We did not seek them out. They came to us. We tried to send them back, but they refused." The elders' gaze darkened. "That refusal is the problem. You are now bound to them, and through them to us. This bond is older than stars, written in the marrow of our kind. Once a cub chooses, it cannot be broken. Not by you, not by us, not even by their parents." A murmur spread through the settlers. The weight of those words was heavy. Mira asked softly, "But why us? Why humans? We are strangers here." The elder's eyes narrowed, and for a moment he was silent, as if measuring his words carefully. Finally he spoke, "Because they see something. Something even we cannot always see. Cub instincts are truth. They know who is protector and who is destroyer. If they have chosen you, it means they believe you are guardians, perhaps stronger guardians than their own." The room stirred with disbelief. Thomas frowned. "Guardians? We are farmers, engineers, explorers. We are not warriors." The elder shook his head. "Guardianship is not strength of arms. It is strength of spirit. The cubs sense in you what they need most. But do not mistake this for blessing. To their parents, this choice will be seen as betrayal. They will not accept it. The word struck like a blade. The settlers looked at one another, fear clear in every face. War, always the same shadow hanging over them. Another elder, older and more frail, stepped forward. Her voice was softer, but every word was sharp. Our people have stories. In the oldest tales, long before memory, there was another time the cubs chose outsiders. Not humans, not your kind, but strangers from another world. That choice led to fire, to rivers of blood. Outsiders could not hold the bond. They were not strong enough. Their weakness broke the cubs, and the tribes fell into war. Villages burned. Whole lineages were lost. Since then, we swore never again. Silence gripped the room. The meaning was clear. The humans were living inside an old nightmare, one that had already destroyed lives once before. Mira whispered, almost to herself, "But the cubs are happy. They trust us. Doesn't that matter?" The first elder's voice grew heavy, like thunder before storm. "Happiness is nothing before tradition. The cubs' choice breaks the order of our people. Parents will come. They will demand blood. If not the cubs, then yours." The cub beside Mira growled loudly, its fur bristling. The others rose as well, forming a protective circle around the humans. The glow of their stripes pulsed like firelight. The message was clear. They would defend their chosen, even here, even against their own elders. The warriors gripped their weapons nervously, but none moved. To harm the cubs would be to commit sacrilege. Captain Lewis stood tall, her voice steady. "Then tell us what we must do. We will not abandon them. That is clear, but if war is coming, we must be prepared." The elder stared at her for a long, heavy moment. Then he spoke with finality. "Prepare, yes. But understand this. No defense will be enough. When the parents come, they will not stop. Not until either you are destroyed or you are accepted." The settlers leaned forward, tense. Mira asked quickly, "And how could we ever be accepted?" The elder's golden eyes narrowed. His answer was slow, each word dripping with weight. "By proving yourselves. By standing where no outsider has stood and surviving what none have survived. If the parents see that the cubs were right, they may let you live. If not..." He let the silence finish his words. The elders turned and left the hut. The warriors followed, casting wary glances at the cubs. The heavy doors closed behind them, leaving the humans alone once more. For a long time, no one spoke. Only the cubs broke the silence, curling once more around their chosen humans, as if nothing had happened. Thomas finally spoke, his voice low. "We are trapped, aren't we? Whatever this bond is, it's not just about us anymore." Captain Lewis nodded grimly. "We are part of their world now, whether we want it or not." Mira reached down, stroking the striped fur of the cub beside her. It leaned into her touch, purring softly. Then, "Maybe we need to stop being afraid," she whispered. "Maybe we need to understand them. If we learn what they are, maybe we'll know why they chose us." Her words lit a spark in Thomas's mind. Discovery, knowledge. Maybe the only path forward was not to fight, but to understand. That night, as the settlement slept uneasily, Thomas stayed awake, staring at the cub at his feet. Questions burned inside him. What truly made the cubs so sacred? What hidden power lay in their blood, their glowing eyes, their stripes of light? And why, out of all beings in the galaxy, had they chosen humanity? He did not know the answers. But he knew one thing. Discovery would come. And when it did, it would change everything. Because this was no longer only about survival. This was about understanding the bond that tied cubs to humans, and humans to cubs. A bond that might either save them or doom them all. The cubs never left. Days passed, and still they stayed in the human camp. They ate, they slept, they played, but always close to their chosen humans. Their glowing eyes watched every movement, and their striped fur gleamed faintly even in the dark. To the settlers, it felt like living under constant guard. At first, some grew used to it. Children giggled when the cubs bounded through the fields, chasing birds. Farmers whispered that the cubs kept wild beasts away. A few even admitted the creatures made them feel safer at night. But not everyone agreed. Suspicion began to spread. Some humans whispered that the cubs were not protectors, but spies. Others feared that their presence was a trap, a way for the aliens to watch and control them. Every meal, every meeting, every quiet moment in the camp was shadowed by doubt. Captain Lewis held her people together as best she could, but even she felt the pressure. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she called Thomas and Mira into her tent. The cubs followed, curling at their feet. "We have a problem," the captain said, her face hard. "The settlement is divided. Half believe the cubs are a blessing. The other half fear we've been cursed. If we cannot calm this suspicion, our own people may turn against each other before the aliens ever strike." Thomas frowned, glancing at the cub that rested near his boots. "But the cubs haven't harmed anyone. They've helped us." Mira nodded quickly. "They saved the children from that wild beast last night. Doesn't that prove their loyalty?" The captain sighed. "It proves something, but fear is stronger than proof. The people see danger in every glowing eye and sharp tooth. And the aliens, they watch us more closely each day." Her words were true. Scouts now circled the settlement at all hours. The aliens did not enter, but their presence was heavy. Their eyes burned with judgment, and their hands never strayed far from their weapons. One night, when the moons hung high, the suspicion finally broke into action. A group of settlers gathered in secret, their faces grim. They whispered that the cubs had to be driven away. They spoke of danger, of war, of the blood that would come if the parents arrived. "Better to lose them now," one man growled, "than to lose all of us later." They crept toward the fire where the cubs slept, claws of metal and sharp tools in their hands. But the cubs woke. Their glowing eyes snapped open, as if they had been waiting. Low growls rumbled in their throats. Their stripes pulsed with light. The settlers froze, fear rising in their hearts. Before they could act, Thomas appeared, drawn by the sound. His voice cut through the night. "Stop. What are you doing?" The men shifted uneasily. One spat on the ground. "We're doing what has to be done. These creatures will bring death to all of us. Can't you see? The aliens already hate us. If we keep them, we're finished." Thomas shook his head, stepping between them and the cubs. "You think driving them out will save us? It won't. They chose us. They won't leave. You'll only bring their rage, and worse, their parents' rage." The men's anger burned, but fear held their hands. They lowered their tools, muttering curses, and melted back into the shadows. Thomas turned to the cubs. They stared up at him with glowing eyes. Calm once more. One brushed his head against his hand, a gesture of trust. But as he stood there, Thomas felt the truth pressing on him. The suspicion was not gone. It was only growing. By morning, the settlement buzzed with rumors. Some whispered of betrayal. Others swore Thomas was blinded by the cubs' bond. Even Mira heard sharp words behind her back. And outside the camp, alien scouts watched more closely than ever. Their golden eyes glowed with something darker than suspicion, something like hatred. The cubs had chosen, but the world had not. And soon, suspicion would turn into something far more dangerous. The tension could no longer be hidden. The aliens came at dawn. Their warriors marched in silence, their armor glowing faintly in the rising light. At their center stood the elders, tall and stern, their faces carved with lines of age and judgment. The settlers gathered nervously, children clutching their parents' legs. And at the edge of it all, the cubs sat calmly beside the humans they had chosen, tails curled neatly around their paws. The elder leader stepped forward. His voice was deep, carrying across the clearing. "The bond cannot be ignored. The cubs have chosen you, but choice is not enough. You must prove your worth, or you will be cast out, and the cubs will be taken from you. A shiver passed through the humans. Captain Lewis stepped up, her jaw set. What must we do? The elder raised his staff toward the dark hills beyond the forest. A beast lives there. It hunts our people. It kills our young. We have long fought it, but it returns again and again. If you are true guardians, you will face it and keep the cubs safe. Only then will your bond be accepted. The crowd fell silent. The words sank in like heavy stones. This was not just a trial. It was a death sentence. Thomas's heart pounded, but when he looked down, the cub beside him stared back without fear. Mira reached for his hand, her face pale but steady. We can't run. If we refuse, they'll take the cubs anyway. The captain gave a single nod. Then we fight. The journey began at dusk. The forest grew darker the deeper they walked. Strange calls echoed between the trees, sharp and mocking. The cubs padded silently at the human sides, their glowing stripes lighting the path like lanterns. Every crack of a branch, every flutter of wings made nerves tighten. They reached the hills by nightfall. Jagged rocks rose like broken teeth. A foul smell hung in the air. Rotting flesh mixed with something older, heavier, like the breath of the earth itself. "Stay close," Captain Lewis whispered, "and keep the cub behind us." But the cubs would not stay back. They moved in a tight circle around the humans, their eyes scanning the shadows. Then came the roar. It shook the ground, rolling through the rocks like thunder. The settlers froze, weapons trembling in their hands. Out of the darkness stepped the beast. It was massive, larger than any creature they had ever seen. Its body was covered in black scales that glistened under the moonlight, for eyes burned red. Its claws gouged deep into stone, and when it opened its mouth, rows of jagged teeth dripped with venom. The settlers staggered back. One man whispered, "We can't fight that." But the beast was already moving. It lunged forward with terrifying speed, smashing rocks aside. The humans scattered, arrows and bullets flying, but the beast's scales deflected most of the strikes. Its tail swept through the air, sending two settlers crashing against the hillside. "Hold the line," the captain shouted. She fired, aiming for the creature's eyes. Sparks flew as the bullet struck near its brow, and the beast roared in fury. Thomas grabbed a torch and thrust it into the ground. Firelight flickered across the rocks. The cubs leapt into action, darting around the beast with shocking agility. They snapped and growled, distracting it, forcing it to turn its massive head from side to side. Mira spotted a weak point, the softer skin under its jaw. "There! Strike there!" she cried. The settlers focused their attacks. But reaching the spot meant facing the beast head-on. It charged again, jaws wide. Thomas dove aside at the last moment, rolling across the ground. He came up gasping, his hands scraped raw. The cubs attacked in unison, their glowing bodies a blur of light. They clawed at the beast's eyes, drawing blood at last. The creature bellowed, thrashing wildly. "Now!" the captain shouted. With all their strength, the humans struck at the wounded jaw. Spears pierced, blades cut, and the beast screamed in rage and pain. It reared back, staggering. Then, with one final blow from a burning spear driven deep into its throat, the monster collapsed, its body shuddering before falling still. Silence followed. Only the crackle of fire and the heavy breathing of survivors filled the air. The cubs returned to the humans, pressing close, their glowing fur streaked with blood and dust. They had fought not as children, but as warriors. And they had chosen to fight with humans. The settlers stood in awe. Some wept. Others stared at Thomas, Mira, and the captain as if seeing them for the first time. When they returned to the settlement, the aliens were waiting. The elders gazed at the group, then at the cubs, who walked proudly beside their human guardians. The leader raised his staff, his voice ringing clear. The trial is complete. The bond is proven. The cubs are yours, and you are theirs. From this day, none shall stand between you. The humans felt both relief and fear. They had won the test. But deep inside, they knew the story was not over. For if the cubs were this powerful now, what would they become when they were grown? The question lingered in every heart. The settlement was quiet after the battle. The humans returned carrying wounds and heavy hearts, but also carrying something new: respect. They had faced a beast, and they had not only survived, they had triumphed. The cubs walked proudly beside them, their glowing stripes brighter than before. To many, it seemed as if the cubs themselves carried victory in their small but fierce bodies. When the aliens saw them, a murmur ran through the gathered crowd. Warriors lowered their weapons. Mothers pulled their young closer, but no one stepped forward to stop them. Even the air felt different, as though the land itself held its breath. The elder leader studied the scene for a long moment. Then he raised his staff high. The test is done. The bond is real. From this day, the cubs belong to humans as much as they belong to us. They have chosen, and their choice cannot be undone. The word spread like fire. Some aliens bowed their heads in respect, while others turned away in anger. For them, it was not victory but humiliation. No cub in history had ever chosen outsiders before. No cub had ever broken the pattern of their people. Captain Lewis stood tall, her voice steady. We did not ask for this bond, but we will honor it. We will guard the cubs as fiercely as we guard our own. The cubs pressed against the humans, purring softly, their eyes glowing with strange warmth. To anyone watching, it was clear they had already decided where they belonged. That night, a great fire was lit in the center of the camp. Humans and aliens both gathered, though in separate circles. The cubs lay near Thomas and Mira, their tails swishing in lazy rhythm. The settlers shared food, whispered stories, and tried to let relief wash over their fear. But not everyone found peace. Some humans still muttered that the cubs were dangerous, that they would one day bring ruin. Some aliens whispered that the humans had tricked them, that the cubs had been stolen, not chosen. The fire burned bright, but shadows of suspicion stretched long around it. Thomas sat quietly, staring into the flames. He thought of the beast they had slain, of the way the cubs had fought at their side, fearless and loyal. A bond had been forged in blood and fire. But he also thought of the cubs' glowing eyes, the strength hidden in their small frames, and the question that haunted him: what will they become when they are grown? Mira leaned against him, sensing his unease. They trust us, she whispered. That has to mean something. It means everything, Thomas said softly. But trust can be tested, and one day it will be. In the following days, life in the settlement began to change. The cubs followed the humans everywhere, into the fields, through the workshops, even into the school where children learned. They protected without command, standing watch whenever danger stirred. When wild beasts approached, they growled and drove them back. When storms came, they herded children into safe shelters. To many settlers, the cubs became family. Children hugged them without fear. Farmers offered them scraps of food. The once divided camp now found a strange kind of comfort in their presence. But outside the camp, the aliens watched. Their eyes were sharp, their movements quiet. To them, the bond was not simply strange. It was dangerous. If cubs chose humans, what would happen when those cubs grew to adulthood, when their power surpassed even the strongest warriors of their kind? Would they still stand beside humans, or would they turn against both species alike? One evening, the elder leader visited the humans again. His face was unreadable, his staff tapping softly against the earth. He stopped before the cubs, who lifted their heads but did not rise. "You have won this bond," he said, "but you must understand it is no small thing. These cubs are not playthings. They will grow, they will learn, and they will remember who raised them. If you fail them, if you shape them wrongly, they may one day bring ruin not just to you, but to us all." Captain Lewis met his gaze without flinching. "Then we will raise them well. We will teach them honor, courage, and kindness. They will not bring ruin. They will bring peace." The elder studied her a moment longer, then gave a slow nod. But his eyes carried doubt that words could not erase. As the moons rose high that night, Thomas lay awake. The cubs curled nearby. Their soft breathing filled the room, steady and calm. He reached out and touched the fur of the smallest one, who stirred and pressed closer. For a brief moment, he felt hope, pure, simple hope, that this bond could change everything. But far in the distance, beyond the hills, another roar echoed, not the cry of the slain beast, but something deeper, older, and far more dangerous. The cubs lifted their heads, ears twitching, their glowing eyes fixed on the horizon, unblinking. Thomas followed their gaze, his heart tightening. The bond was real. The bond was powerful. But it was only the beginning. And as the night stretched on, one truth became clear. Humanity was no longer alone. But whether that would be their greatest strength or their greatest threat was a question the future had yet to answer.